I wrote these thoughts back in 1916. Some time ago, a few young people rediscovered it. For publishing it in the book, I've cleaned it up a little, but I haven't changed its underlying thinking or its actual claims. Even 42 years later, this material still feels entirely fresh and necessary. Knowledgeable people know it could have been written better. And yet, despite its flaws, this remains an old and important paper. Reading it, you'll see just how much effort it originally took to understand the workings of the human mind. Its core argument still holds up perfectly today. Perhaps reading it will help you understand this problem more deeply, a problem that's really one of the biggest questions in the world. How do we, in our day-to-day lives, find balance, find harmony with that hidden mind, that unconscious mind, which we don't fully know? This same question has also been asked in Indian thought, especially in Buddhism and Jainism. It's the biggest question in every religion and every way of thinking, because this hidden mind of ours, this unconscious, isn't something fixed and static. It's an unknown force, an unknown power that has a direct effect on us. Now, I'll tell you about the technique of waking dreams, of active imagination. This is a vital method for bringing out the things in our mind that lie hidden just beneath our awareness. Given a little push, they suddenly surface into our waking mind, our conscious mind. Because of this, the method isn't entirely safe, and it does carry some risks. Where possible, it should only be done under the supervision of someone knowledgeable. One minor risk is that it might not lead to any solid result at all. A person might simply drift along in this open, free-flowing way of thinking, and end up going around in circles in their own tangled thoughts. There's another risk too. It doesn't cause harm exactly, but it wastes time. Real material may surface from the mind, but the sick person just watches it like a beautiful film music and gets stuck in it. In that case, there's no benefit at all. These thoughts only have real meaning and value once we make them part of our life, our character, our personality meaning. Once we understand what right action they're asking us to take. Finally, there's a third and biggest danger, and this can be a very serious matter. The thoughts hidden inside us carry so much power that when they come out, they can take over our waking mind, our conscious mind. They can seize control of our entire behavior, music, our entire personality. This can create a state that's very hard to distinguish from madness, and the person can even suffer an actual psychotic episode. That's why this technique of waking dreams is not something to play around with. These days, people tend to take the power of this hidden mind, this unconscious mind, far too lightly, which only increases the danger. But there's no doubt that for doctors who treat the mind, for psychotherapists, this method is an extremely valuable tool. So let's try to understand it. The transcendent function, the method of going beyond the limit. Don't be scared off by the name. There's nothing magical or mysterious about it. It's simply a way the mind works, much like something in math. It comes about when our waking mind and our hidden mind merge with each other. Investigation through analytical psychology, the science of the mind, has proven that our waking mind and our hidden mind rarely agree on anything. The two usually hold different views. This is because our hidden mind compensates for the shortcomings of our waking mind. There are some specific reasons for this. For a thought to enter the waking mind at all, it needs a certain strength, a threshold intensity. Weaker thoughts simply stay behind in our unconscious mind. Our waking mind works in a fixed direction, so it blocks out anything unwelcome. And as a result, those things end up going into our hidden mind. The waking mind is busy adapting to the here and now, while our hidden mind holds forgotten material and behavioral traces left behind by our ancestors. The hidden mind also contains new ideas that haven't yet gained enough strength. Given the right conditions, they'll eventually surface into the waking mind. This makes it easy to see how our hidden mind compensates for the gaps in our waking mind music. The firmness of our waking mind and its ability to think in one direction are qualities that human beings only developed after a very long time. Older peoples have less of this quality. People struggling with mental distress also have it weakened. In such people, the wall between the waking and hidden mind can easily be crossed back and forth. People who are truly insane are directly under the control of their hidden mind. The firmness of our waking mind and its single-minded direction are extremely valuable qualities. Without them, science, technology, and today's world civilization itself could never have come into being. From a leader to a laborer, everyone needs this. When this quality weakens because of our hidden mind, a person gradually becomes useless to society. Great artists and innovators, though, are an exception to this rule. Their advantage is precisely that the wall in their minds is more permeable. It's necessary for every person's way of thinking to be stable. But this comes with a downside too. This habit of the mind pushes out every thought that doesn't fit that same path. How do we know which thought doesn't fit? We decide this through judgment, and that judgment is always based on our past experience, not on anything new. Such judgments make our minds one-sided. Many times our own intelligence, our own rationality, becomes the biggest source of bias. Whatever strikes us as senseless, as unreasonable, we throw out, even though, seen from another angle, it might actually be entirely correct. Thinking in one direction is a firm habit of our mind. Even when we see no harm coming from it, our hidden mind is always quietly building up an opposing line of thought. This opposing thought isn't dangerous, as long as it doesn't accumulate too much strength. But when inner tension builds, this opposing thought breaks through the wall and forces its way into our waking mind, our conscious mind. For example, a slip of the tongue happens at exactly the moment a person is paying the most attention. In today's world, society expects us to concentrate fully and think in just one direction. But there's a real danger in that. It pulls us away from our hidden mind, and the further we run from it, the faster a powerful force builds up against us inside that hidden mind. When that force eventually erupts, the consequences can be very severe. Through psychological investigation, we've come to understand just how much the hidden mind affects us. We don't foolishly expect that, after treatment, the hidden mind will simply disappear. When the time comes to end an analysis, the patient, music, finds it hard to make that decision. The patient is afraid to stand on their own feet because their hidden mind could intervene suddenly, at any time. People used to believe that once a patient understood the meaning of their dreams, they'd be ready for normal life. But even professional analysts often find themselves at a loss in front of their own dreams and need to seek help from a colleague. Freud had hoped that this hidden mind could be fully emptied out, but that didn't happen. The world of dreams keeps going on, completely unchecked. People are mistaken in thinking that psychological treatment is some kind of permanent cure. In reality, this treatment is simply a new setting for your way of thinking. There are very few cases where a single round of treatment succeeds once and for all. our hidden mind is always alive, and it keeps throwing up new troubles. This kind of analysis is not a permanent cure for life. Life always has to be fought afresh. Society and people have certain fixed rules that resolve our ordinary, everyday difficulties. But a patient's personal struggle doesn't fit neatly into those rules. They have to find their own particular solution, their own particular answer. Any new approach learned during treatment will, sooner or later, weaken. Life is like a flowing river, constantly demanding that we adapt to new circumstances. After good treatment, a patient finds it easier to adjust to new things, but difficulties can still arise. That's exactly why patients who've completed a full course of treatment sometimes come back to their doctor later on. There's no therapy in the world that permanently eliminates all difficulties. Human beings need difficulties. It's essential for good health. The real question for a doctor is, how does one face the difficulties that lie ahead with courage? The question is, what attitude should we have toward thoughts coming from the hidden mind? And how should this important idea be explained to the patient? The direct answer is, by closing the gap between our waking mind and our hidden mind. We need to understand just how essential these hidden thoughts are for filling in the gaps in our waking mind. These very tendencies of the waking and hidden mind together form what's called the transcendent function, the method of going beyond the limit. This method easily transforms our way of thinking. The analyst awakens the hidden understanding inside the sick person. In real life, the doctor essentially runs this transcendent function on behalf of the patient. In carrying out this work, the deep bond, the transference, that the patient develops towards the doctor carries great significance. The patient becomes attached to the doctor because they see in him the hope of change. Even if this dependence looks childlike, it is in fact a necessary inner need. People often mistake it for childhood affection, but this bond should be understood not in terms of the past, but in terms of present purpose. Reducing it to nothing but old history is nonsense. Treatment that moves forward together with this hidden mind opens up a new path for the patient. I call the deep understanding that comes out of this the transcendent function, the method of going beyond the limit. Some people say this method is nothing more than planting an idea inside the patient's mind. But that's not the case. It treats dreams as a profound signal. A symbol means the best possible way of expressing something complicated. At the start, we draw out the patient's thoughts connected to their dreams. We ask ourselves what deeper meaning these thoughts are pointing toward. For example, an unmarried woman patient once dreamed that she'd been given an ancient sword that had been dug up from a grave. The doctor didn't need to add anything from his own side. The woman's own thoughts revealed everything that was necessary. No idea takes root in the mind unless the person is inwardly ready for it. So it would be wrong to say that the doctor, music, planted the idea in her mind. The doctor is of great help during treatment, but in real life, examining one's own dreams on one's own is difficult. The old sword reminded this woman of her father's dagger. Her father had been agile and resolute. The sword in the dream was a relic of her ancestors. The old way of thinking would say that the woman missed her father a great deal, and that she'd always chosen weak men, that the dream showed she wanted to possess her father's weapon. But seen in a new light, what she truly needed was a weapon, not a weapon made of iron, but her own deep understanding and good sense. It was her own firm resolve. Up until then, she'd been like a spoiled, overindulged child. But now she was coming to recognize her own strength. the most essential material for the transcendent function, the method of going beyond the limit, is the content of our hidden mind. The best way to access it is through our dreams. The dreams that come during sleep contain unfiltered, unthinking material, full of confusion. During sleep, the mind's strength is reduced, so dreams come out very faint and weak, which makes them hard to interpret. We need to find other ways of bringing hidden thoughts to the surface. Even while awake, things like sudden slips of the tongue or memory lapses occur. But these are very fragmentary. Another route is spontaneous fantasy, sudden thoughts that arise on their own, which tend to be interconnected. With effort and practice, one can build the habit of letting open, free thoughts surface. For this, you have to create a kind of emptiness, a vacuum in your waking mind. I suspect the reader might be doubting why it's so important to bring these hidden thoughts to the surface at all. Should we really force them out? It's important that we address these doubts directly. The methods for bringing out the hidden mind can seem strange and even frightening, which is exactly why these questions need to be discussed first. Among older peoples, there was no need for any special technique to bring out the hidden mind. All we're doing is looking for a way to get to know these thoughts so we can avoid bad outcomes. The reader might ask why we shouldn't just leave this hidden mind alone, to its own devices. Anyone who has been through hard times will want to keep it under control. It's necessary for our waking mind to move in one direction, but this also risks turning our mind into a machine that can harm itself. When the opposing thoughts of this hidden mind get suppressed, they lose their balance, and then they start speeding up the work of our waking mind. It's like when a person suppresses a doubt, they end up insisting on that very point, to their own detriment. The easier it becomes for us to wipe out the opposing thoughts of our mind, the more divided our mind becomes, and the more we lose touch with our own true inner voice. For today's educated person, this is common, and it's also a necessary thing, because if our natural instincts stayed fully intact, it would be hard for us to adapt to society. This doesn't mean our natural instincts have truly disappeared. In most cases, it's simply a long-term effect of our education. And if this habit didn't benefit people in some way, it wouldn't be this deeply rooted. Setting aside everyday life, the best example of suppressing this balancing effect of the hidden mind can be found in the book Thus Spoke Zarathustra. The search in that book for the higher man and for the ugliest man actually reflects this very same balancing effect. The higher men want to pull Zarathustra down into the very same society ordinary people have always lived in. The ugliest man, on the other hand, is a living embodiment of our mind's opposing thoughts. But Zarathustra's lion forces all of these thoughts, especially the feeling of pity, back down into that hidden mind. In doing so, that balancing effect is suppressed, but a secret countermove, a hidden counteraction, then begins within that hidden mind. This countermove becomes clearly visible in Nietzsche's later writings. At first, he sees Wagner as his enemy, but soon his whole fury bursts out against Christianity. As everyone knows, the madness that overtook him forced him to identify himself as the crucified Christ, and then as the dismembered god, Dionysus. With this catastrophic collapse, that suppressed opposing thought finally broke through every wall and came out into the open. If a person lacks the capacity to bring forth open, free thoughts, the power for free fantasy, then outside help becomes necessary. Such help is often needed when a person is very depressed and no clear reason can be found for it. The sick person may offer reasonable sounding explanations for their distress, But no explanation truly satisfies the heart, because an outside observer is content simply knowing where the trouble came from. He can't actually feel the suffering. What the sick person wants to know is how to get free of it. Suppressing this distress, or downplaying it, accomplishes nothing. So, to recover the strength that's gotten stuck in the wrong place, the sick person should start from their own emotional state, their own felt mood. They should fully understand their mood, let themselves sink into it, music, and write down whatever thoughts arise. These thoughts should be given freedom, but not so much freedom that they drift away from the real underlying feeling. Through this kind of open thinking, our mood comes out into the open, because this low feeling wasn't deliberately created by our waking mind. It came from our hidden mind. So this mood coming to the surface is, in a sense, a picture of our hidden thoughts. This process is a way of clarifying and refining our emotions. It brings those emotions and thoughts closer to our waking mind, making them easier to understand, and it always creates a new state of mind. This is exactly where the transcendent function, the method of going beyond the limit, begins, the joint working of our waking and hidden minds. There's another way to deal with this problem too. It can also be given an actual physical form. Anyone who enjoys drawing can express their mood by making a picture. The picture doesn't need to be beautiful at all. What matters is simply giving the thoughts freedom to play. This method works the same way as the one before. The resulting picture is shaped by the influence of both our waking and hidden minds. But often, the sick person has no particular mood at all, just a strange restlessness. They feel irritated, bored, and there's a kind of emptiness that's hard to describe music. In such a state, one has to create one's own firm starting point. Here, the energy needs to be turned inward, back onto oneself. Full rest, especially at night, is helpful here. In doing this work, you should drop the habit of criticizing yourself. People who think in pictures should focus their attention on the image forming inside them, and if a mental picture appears music, they should write it down. People who think in words, who are verbal thinkers, hear words internally they should write down even incomplete sentences. Some people hear a second voice of their own, as if some judge, some inner critic, were sitting there. Ordinary people can hear this voice too. Such people lay the foundation for the transcendent function, the method of going beyond the limit. Quite easily, music. Some people have a skill in their hands that lets them give shape to the thoughts of their hidden mind using clay or modeling material. A very few express their hidden mind through bodily movements, music. These should be recorded, perhaps photographed, so they aren't lost to memory. Writing freely on your own is also a very useful method. Once we have this material, these thoughts that we've drawn out through these methods, music, what should we do with them? There's no fixed answer to that. It's only once our waking mind confronts this material that the next step becomes clear. From practical experience, two paths emerge. The path of creative formulation, of making something new, and the path of understanding. Where the creative method dominates, music, the material, gets transformed into a fixed symbol. Music. These symbols in turn stir our imagination, our creative fantasy. Where understanding dominates, there's no interest in beauty at all, none in aesthetic appeal. Here, the real meaning of the thought is grasped only through hard effort, through intense struggle to understand the true meaning of that unconscious product. Beauty pays attention to outward form. Artistic design focuses on outer appearance, while inner understanding tries to grasp meaning through small, subtle clues. Neither approach can be forced. They arise out of a person's own nature, and both carry their own risks. The risk of the beauty-focused approach is that we start to value the artistry of the thoughts too much. The risk of the meaning-focused approach is that we put so much emphasis on the thoughts that we end up reading too deep a meaning into them. Undervaluing something is the biggest obstacle of all. Whatever doesn't fit into society and into people's expectations tends not to be valued. We need to learn to value our own material ourselves. All wrong decisions, in the end, come from a person's own unconsciousness. One method needs to govern the other. Art needs meaning, and artistic design needs understanding of its meaning. And meaning, in turn, needs art. Together, the two form the transcendent function, the method of going beyond the limit. Its rule is this: our waking mind, our conscious mind, hands everything over to the hidden material, the unconscious content. Control has to be handed over to whatever thoughts arise spontaneously. This is, in a sense, a defeat for the thinking of the waking mind. Hidden thoughts are often unwelcome. Unconscious thoughts are often unwanted. What seems useless to society and to other people can be enormously valuable to that particular person's own thinking. The goal of this method is to find those emotionally charged thoughts, those emotional thoughts. Ideally, both paths, creative formulation and understanding, should be walked together. Our hidden thoughts, our unconscious content, simply want to be seen clearly. Giving a vague thought a definite form is essential to making it clear. You can do this by drawing a picture or making a sculpture. Often, our hands solve the puzzle on their own. But stopping once you've simply made it beautiful is a mistake. If you try to grasp the meaning without giving it any form at all, you won't have an adequate basis to work from. This step should only be taken when there's solid reason to do so. Once the content of the hidden mind has been given form, the question arises: what will our self, our ego, do now? Our waking self and our hidden mind will need to come into harmony with each other. And that, precisely, is the transcendent function, the method of going beyond the limit. Here, ego, isn't some abstract bookish concept. It's our waking awareness, the center of consciousness. For this harmony to be reached, a proper way of thinking is essential. Both sides need to carry equal weight. If the hidden mind suddenly broke completely free, it could overwhelm and crush the ego. The danger is that the person could lose consciousness entirely. Clears throat. It's essential to feel that emotion with its full intensity. In treatment, full attention must be given to emotional factors. Both the doctor and the patient need to take this seriously. Reaching harmony with the opposing movements of the hidden mind is a major undertaking. It needs to be given a measure of respect so that it can work together with us. When we come to understand the hidden voice of our own mind, our waking thought and our inner voice are given equal respect. This is easier for people who can clearly hear that second voice. It's exactly like two people having an open conversation and working out a middle path together. If you don't take other people's words seriously, then you won't give your own hidden inner voice its due either. Being able to hold a conversation with yourself is proof that you can see the outer world clearly. Music too. Things get more difficult when only images, only visuals appear. In that case, the waking self, the ego, should ask, what effect is this image having on me? Deep feelings are worth far more than any clever piece of reasoning. When two opposing things come face to face, something new and alive is born. When a stuck pattern of thought collides with our true nature, a new form emerges that heals us. People trained in science, the scientific public, often can't grasp these things. They stay confined to their own way of thinking. What's true for them might be false for someone else entirely. People are always asking, is this actually true? But if something isn't clearly false, then it is, in its own way, true. Old stories and myths also play a major role here. People dismiss them as useless, which is itself a rather childish way of thinking. When our waking mind comes into contact with hidden material, our mind grows larger and wiser. If we put in the effort, our mind can genuinely open up. Often, people lack the courage for this, or are simply lazy, but those who do put in the work gain enormous benefit. The sick person becomes free on their own, and this is truly a wonderful way of coming to know oneself. That's all for today's episode. We'll see you again in a new episode with a new topic. You were listening to Night Philosophy. Thank you.